Andrew, let's think about serve. Let's think about how we want to have a healthy body where everyone's actually using their gifts, exercising those in love, serving and building up the church community. What does that look like at the moment when so many of our ministries have had to close down, and so many of our ministries are actually not present?
Yeah, in our context here, there are some whole areas of ministry life that have just ceased to exist, and that's a whole new shift. As we've thought about it short, medium, long term. So, in the short term, you've had to. I think you used the language of pivot. We've had to reorientate all our ministries to get two or three priorities established, get our services online, get our small group structures online, get people established into new patterns. So that's been the first 2-3 weeks of this period of time. Second, medium term is beginning to think about what are the new areas of ministry that need to be resourced, and how can we find ways to recruit for those new ministries in an environment where it's not easy to sit down together. So we've begun to think about where are the heightened demands, where are the areas where there's now no responsibilities happening, and where are some areas of ministry where proactively we can be doing more in this new context and environment. So, some areas that have had to be ramped up are all the tech support, the production work, particularly for our kind of ministry here. In a smaller church, that production area may be a small piece. It's just holding an iPhone. But for us, that's been ramped up. Though that whole area has a fixed cost to it. There's only, whatever size of church you are, there'll be only a certain number who can do it. And once you've filled that number of people, it's not like you can keep adding more and more to it. And so once we've kind of shifted into recruiting, resourcing that area, that's your first 2, 3, 4 weeks. Then it's moving into, well, where have we got spare capacity with people? Where do we need to be more proactive? And that's what we're moving into now. And in that, of course, you've got the formal and informal ministries to think about. The formal ministries are there ways that we can be doing our care ministries more intentionally and deliberately? So for us, we've brainstormed all of that. One of the things we're pursuing is what we call care calling. I can talk about that in another context, but that needs to be resourced. There needs to be people engaged in that ministry team, and so recruiting them has become a critical piece.
So that seems to be the biggest area, or in the medium term, seems to be those care teams. Where have your existing structures not been able to do that? So in an existing sort of church life pre-COVID, the main care structure would have come through growth group leaders, for the most part.
Yeah.
Why have you needed to pivot and add an additional structure?
Oh, well, because the nature of care in a context where there was no public gathering place means that your only real gathering point where there's personal engagement is the small group setting. But that leaves a whole host of people who aren't gathering. There's a whole group of people in most churches, most healthy churches, I'd say, who aren't in small groups. They're part of your church life. There's a fringe. We need to pay attention to that. Now, that group was often captured by simply being in a meeting together on a Sunday. So there was movement in amongst them. There was lots of conversations happening, but now that's not the case. So there's an area of ministry that needs to be picked up on. Now for us, therefore, and then you've got the informal work of how do I continue to elevate every single member of church's desire to serve those around them, care for and what have you. Now, for us, recruitment's gone online. We're inviting people to consider stepping into new areas of ministry opportunity. There'll be phone calls that follow through on all of that, and new teams built and then supported and managed. But there's had to be a readiness to rebuild the ministry structures and the ministry team to achieve new ministries that weren't as prominent, didn't demand as much resource in the past, but now do.
Can you talk about the impact on your staff team? How have they've obviously had to change to, as you say, not doing face-to-face recruiting, but to online recruiting. Is there now more of a need for, ministry staff to be building this, platform of care teams, or is there less of a need as it becomes decentralized and pushed, down into the body?
Well, we can talk about that more in the context of talking about care, but the reality is you always have to start with the end in mind. Always start with the outcome you're after. What is it I need to achieve? And in a new context and environment, how can I best achieve that?
Mm.
And the thing we have always wanted to achieve is the personal care of every member of our church. Now, a lot of that was achieved by virtue of established meeting structures that facilitated the rubbing up against each other and the conversations.
Mm.
Now, with that now missing, you've obviously got a massive hole that needs to be filled in a new way. But begin with the end in mind, begin with the outcome. How am I going to achieve these things? Pay attention to the context change, and then how to meet that need in that new environment.
Now, you've spoken in the past about a key element of serve is glad sacrificial service. It's been helpful reading the articles on the plagues and on the early church and how they put themselves at risk to minister to people, to care for people. What might glad sacrificial service look like in the coming months for our church members?
Yeah, well,
sorry, I don't know if that's too heavy a question, but I'm just thinking it's going to be rubber on the road for people.
Disease and death.
Yeah.
Well, what it looks like, you'd hope it looks like in every other context, which is I look to others and their needs above my own. I follow the example of Jesus, Philippians chapter 2. And so my aim is not personal comfort and safety. My aim is how can I embody the life of Jesus in relationships around me, and so be looking for the interests of others above my own. That's always got to be the nature and character of it. Now, for some people, that will mean developing routines and patterns where intentionally they're looking to contact and speak to and share with other people. For others, it will look like going to the hospital where they're now paid to do a very dangerous job, and doing that ready to embrace the risk because that's what Jesus would do. For others, it'll mean paying attention to family, perhaps particularly that are vulnerable and needy, and keeping in touch with them. It'll have all kinds of different contexts, with whatever setting it is.
Excellent. Well, thanks for pressing into serve, and it sounds like we're going to need to talk about care on another episode in the future.